Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're a Negro.
No.
I am your teacher. You are a Negro.
No.
Suppose I threatened to beat you. What would you say? Aren't you a Negro now?
No.
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
What is your nationality?
My nationality is Afro-American.
Suppose I had some money in my pocket. Suppose I gave you $1 to say that you're an American Negro. This is money now. Money talks. Money talks. This dollar. And if you don't say it, you don't get it. You're an American Negro, aren't you?
No.
You won't have any money. You know you need money, don't you?
Yes.
You need money to live, don't you?
Yes.
All right. All you have to say, Leon, is that you're an American Negro.
Hey, how's y'all doing, everybody? Again, this is your host, the Whiteologist, Mr. Blow Your Minds, and welcome to Black Minds News Live Report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam that should happen to be up in the house. What's good? Once again, another Black Minds Live Report. Thank each and every one of you for coming by. Passerby, you happen to pass by. This is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Go down the aisle, we have some things that make you feel some kind of way. But remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. Okay, so we know today's date is March 3rd, 2021. And, I think everybody's a little knowledgeable or something. You might be wondering, well, Mr. Blow Your Mind, what's up with that thumbnail you got over there? What are we talking about? Let's look at that right quick. Right? Lawful invasion to undermine. Let me say that again. Lawful invasion to undermine. Well, based on something that took place the other day, we've seen something that may behoove some people be like, man, wait a minute. That was a tragic event that took place. There's a lot of people who died. But what is the underlying story to it, and what significance does it play? Well, we can say as American citizens, but then we as black Americans know how the old saying is, white folks catch cold, black folks catch pneumonia, right? Meaning if it's worse for white folks that be affected, then you know how the trickle down effect is, that we get it as well. So as you see on your thumbnail there is pertaining to, as you see on your picture there, and I will go into that and show why I am showing that, right? Now, particularly, as black Americans in this country, anything that affects others or is doing something that may be underlining and we're not paying attention, because again, I know we as in the black corner who do black news, all of us specify in certain topics and way they dissertate and so forth. So I always come in and I watch a lot of them, support them with the likes and so forth. And we all have our own way of doing what we do. Now, for me, as Black Minds News, what I do over here is there's a story to come across, and what I want to do is also give you the story of it, and as well some of the historical parts to it and my opinion as well, right? Now, we ready to go ahead and show that, sir? Go ahead and show that, because we did see this, right? We prepared, ready for that? I think we are, right? Yeah, we can go ahead. So, California mass casualty crash involves smugglers, illegal immigrants. Border Patrol source says, let me say that again. California mass casualty. Crash involved smugglers. Illegal immigrants, Border Patrol source says. So I think a lot of y'all might have heard of this, right? And how this crash that, the news is kind of being like, well, we're not really sure what this is all about. And a lot of people just kind of say, it is what it is. But there is some significance in that. And then there's some history to it. And then you got to understand, as I said in the beginning, how that code that one people going to get, how that may trickle down and affect us even more. So, that's what we're going to do today, right? So it's talking about how the California highway crash, they said, involved in human smugglers. They said it was 25 illegal immigrants jammed in a single SUV. 25 in the SUV. Damn, imagine that. Anyway, but they said it was over a dozen dead. So we're going to say 12 make a dozen. Over that would be 13. So 13 of the 25 were dead from this crash, right? And it was going to, reported by the Border Patrol, right? Now, they were saying that this overloaded Ford Expedition, I'm thinking about that. What year was this expedition? Ford Expedition that I know going back, ain't 25, ouch. Yeah, I get, anyway, we're going to get into this. All right, so again, it says Ford Expedition normally seats about 8, they say, right? Somehow, a semi-truck that was near, and they said it was between the U.S. and Mexican border, and the SUV, though it had 2 seats in the front, even 2 seats in the front when you're talking about 25 people, can you even imagine that? Right? Think about it. Damn, they're packed up in there, right? All of the back seats, they say, had been removed to create more space for the passenger. I don't care. That's kind of like the old way when they say how you pack people up and then back in the day, you used to show the clowns in the car and they all coming out. You'd be like, man, 15, 16 months come out that little bitty car, right? But that's what this was, right? So this crash occurred in Holtzville, about 125 miles outside of San Diego. Now, California Highway Patrol officers found 12 people dead on the scene. Another one had died later at the local hospital, and 8 had remained with their injuries transported to different hospital locations, right? Now, the authorities, they had said that the driver of the Ford died in the crash. Supposedly had stopped at a stop sign before crossing into the path with a big rig about 6:15 a.m. in the morning. This truck or the semi was hauling gravel, right? And hit it on the left side, and when it hit it, veered and pushed it right off the road there. I think I got a picture for you to see this, right? We got a picture for that, sir? Yeah, I think we got a picture. No, not that one. You ain't got the picture in there, sir? Oh, shit. You slow today. Being slow, so I'm going to have to do it this way. Do it that way. And see if we can see it from there. We can see it from there. Okay, so go ahead and show that, right? So that's how that's looking, right? Hopefully you can see that, right? So you see that semi hitting square on, hit the driver's side, right? Look, they hit square on that driver's side, and you imagine 25 people up in there. Surprised everybody wasn't dead up in there, right? And that's how that looked, right? So, okay. Now, goes on to talk about how the California Highway Patrol officers or officials, and they were working with the Mexican consulate to identify the victims and notify the families. They said the ages range between 20 and 55. And said one of the youngest was about 16. Crash happened after a hole was cut in the border fence. I think you do got that picture, right? Yeah, you had that picture for some reason. You got that one. So they're going to show, they said that they actually had came up out of this here, right? So they cut out the fence, was making a break for the border, right? That's what they say, right? And so they said this crash happened as a hole was cut in the border fence near Calexico, California. So the fence was constructed sometime between 2007 and 2009. It's about several miles east of the port of entry. And, you know, they had to throw the political part in there. Talking about, well, you know, it was not the wall that Donald Trump had built. Right? It wasn't Donald Trump built it. He didn't build that wall, right? Okay. So, looking at that, right? You know, the tragedy, again, we as, you know, black Americans, again, we can recognize tragedy when we see it, but there's some more significance to this story other than the fact that what did take place because, you know, let me give you the breaking story on that, and then I'm going to give you some more that ties to it. There's more to this. It's not just all that you see. So you ready for that, sir? We can go ahead and show this, and we shall be right back. Check this out, as this is what the report said.
Yeah, terrible situation out here in Holtville. Let's show you some video from the scene. You're going to see an SUV absolutely crushed by a big rig. We're told this happened around 6:20 this morning on the 115. Where we're at, we are not far from the Mexican border. We are in southeast California. What the question is right now is why were so many people in that SUV? According to the CHP, there were 25 people inside that SUV that got crushed by the big rig. As far as what caused the crash, they're still investigating that, but we do know the outcome. 13 people were killed in this crash. 12 of them pronounced dead at the scene, another pronounced dead at the hospital, many others taken to the hospital, still there getting taken care of. Now, the question I said, what were those folks doing in that SUV? So many of them packed in there. Obviously not a legal situation as far as driving with that many people in the car. There is a kind of a dual economy where we're at. We are near Calexico and Mexicali. It's the border here. It's really considered by many who live down here one economy. You have farm workers who come in from Mexico legally early in the morning. They come up here to the farms and work. They get driven from the border to the farms and then back down to the border later in the day. You also have the issue of illegal immigration here in this area where people sneak in and sometimes get in situations like this as well. What was this situation? The CHP says they're still looking into it.
So the question is, are they farm workers or immigrants? We don't know that. It's too early in the investigation to say what they were doing and where they're coming from.
Now, they did say that they are working with the Mexican consulate as far as IDing some of the folks who were killed and also some of the folks who were taken to the hospital. But as far as the situation, again, as far as what those folks were doing, so many of them in that car early this morning, they still don't know. Just a terrible situation. The investigation still playing out. For now, reporting live.
All right, we are back, right? So that was the actual report that I had gotten. It's talking about how there's farms out there, right? There's some farms out there where they say immigrants come and they, you know, that's where they be and they do what they do. And I'm like, okay. It just seemed like a crash and some people would say, oh, there was some other stuff going on. But okay, I had seen something maybe a day or two prior before this took place, right? So let me show you what I had seen. Maybe for those, again, if you're watching news like I do, you might have seen this. So let's go ahead and let's show that, right? All right. It says Mexican president says he'll propose labor program to Biden. Let me say that again. Mexican president says he'll propose labor program to Biden. Okay? Now, in this article, what it was talking about is the Mexican president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, right? He proposed a BRACERO-style immigrant labor program to the United States. Okay. Now, they said the two leaders had planned on Monday to talk about this, right? Now, we're talking about this BRACERO program. It allows Mexicans to temporarily work in the United States to fill labor shortages. And this is systemic going back to World War II and afterwards, okay? And it was quoted saying that Lopez Obrador said that the United States economy needs Mexican workers because of their strength and their youth. Okay? Keep that in mind, strength and their youth. Now, what he was suggesting to want to have this deal with Joe Biden was the fact that he was saying that he wanted to have permission for 600,000 to 800,000 Mexicans from Central American immigrants to work legally in the United States every year. Let me say this again. Lopez Obrador, he wants permission by Joe Biden that this deal that you see, that he talking about on your screen there, this labor program called the BRACERO, and he wants permission for 600,000 to 800,000 Mexicans and Central American immigrants to work legally in the United States every year. Quoted as also saying that we, as Americans, are going to need Mexicans and Central American workers to produce, to grow. Quoted said Biden had proposed legislation to give legal status and the path to citizenship to all the estimated, they keep saying 11 million people in the country who do not have it, right? Now, this BRACERO program, for those who may not know about that, right, is a Spanish term called BRACERO, meaning manual labor or laborers, right? One who works with their arms. This was a series of laws of diplomatic agreements going back to about August 4th of 1942. The United States signed the Mexican Farm Labor Agreement with Mexico. Farm workers. Agreement guaranteed decent living condition, right? So check this out. Now, the United States signed the Mexican Farm Labor Agreement with Mexico for these farm workers, right? The agreement guarantees decent living conditions, right? They were talking about sanitation, adequate shelter, and food. Those part of the package, right? Minimum of that time when they originally did it back in 1942, they were talking about the minimum wage of 30 cents an hour. And we are on the verge of $15 an hour for those who are anticipating that, right? But sometimes things fall up out the sky, but you have to be paying attention. Say some things fell out, it may be just nothing to you. It's just something, right? But you better look at this, and that's what I'm going to give you the history to this, right? Give you the history to this. Right? So the minimum wage at the time in 1942, they was giving them 30 cents an hour. They were protection from forced military service, so you couldn't force them being as employees or somewhat pathway to citizenship. You couldn't force them to be part of the military. You had to guarantee part of their wages that they were going to get had to go into a private saving account that went back to Mexico, right? It allowed the importation of contract labor. So they call it contract laborers. They're talking about Guam. And all this is they saying is going back to World War II. Now, remember those who are avid watchers over here. Remember I was just telling us how we migrated from the South during 1916. And we had our first migration from 1916 to about 1940-something, right? And then from 1940-something to 1970, right? So all this is around about the same time. Okay? Now, the agreement was extended with the Migrant Labor Agreement in 1951. They had the amendment to the Agricultural Act of 1949, which they call Public Law 78 by Congress. They set the official parameters for the BRACERO program until its termination in 1964. So it had supposedly got terminated in 1964. But as you see on your screen here, what you think he talking about? The Mexican president say he wants to propose a labor program to Biden. Okay. So even they try to make it seem that it was a 2018 study that was published by the American Economic Review, and they were saying that the BRACERO program did not have any adverse impact on the labor market outcomes on American-born farm workers. That's you saying farm workers, right? So the end of the BRACERO program did not raise wages or employment for American-born farm workers. So the key word they keep trying to say is farm workers, right? So let's see, right? So looking at that 1951 negotiation, right? You had the American growers, that was those who owned those farms. And again, they, according to what they were saying, because they've had hard times getting Americans to come back. And again, we as Black Americans were the ones that were down on those plantations, who left out of there based on all the conditions that we were enduring. So again, remember the migration where basically almost 50% of our people migrated up out of there. So they didn't have people down there to work. So they was making an agreement, as the end part of that first, let's say, exodus we were doing. And so they were petitioning for Mexicans to send up their workers, right? And the way they kind of package it, they say, well, what we want is we want the Mexican workers the opportunity to grow and harvest their crops, right? And place them on the American market. And, the negotiations that we're doing here on this new BRACERO program, okay, what we want to do to make it safeguard so there's only people that's part of this program is what we want the United States to do is impose sanctions to the American employers on undocumented workers, right? They don't even, that's a bad word these days. Right? You can't say that today. But back then, to make it palatable in the mouth of those of us who are here, right? So it was President Truman who signed the Public Law 78, but when he signed it, he did not include the employer's sanction. Think about that, right? I mean, it was one time we was kind of hearing people talking about hey man, people got undocumented workers and they were working there and, things like that. And they didn't penalize the company, right? And they never penalized them is because the way this is structured, it doesn't go through the employers. It is between the nations, the government here in Mexico, the government here in the United States, right? And so this agreement made it so that the United States government was the grantor of the contract, right? So instead of it being the United States employer. So they said now the BRACEROs could not be used as a replacement worker for the United States workers on strike. So they couldn't be scab workers. Right? And they used to use that word scabs. Somebody busting across in the line, right? And then you had the union, right? So these BRACEROs were not allowed to go on strike or renegotiate wages, right? All negotiation would be between the two governments. So whatever they set the standards was, because remember, this one country is also laboring out its citizens to another country for, I guess there's a negotiation between the two about what it is, and part of that is going to be taken from them and put back into the other country. Okay, because sometimes we don't really understand how this be working. We be hearing it and we be hearing people talking about it, but again, as Black news, we have to also be trying to understand how all this stuff is going down as well, right? So they also talk about how Congress approved that bill and made the harboring of illegal immigrants a felony, right? But however, it was a Texas proviso, I think they call it, Texas proviso, yeah. They had stated that employing unauthorized workers would not have constituted a harboring or concealing them. So Texas was making some kind of way where it's not harboring, it's just they're just workers, right? Okay? And this led to the establishment of what they call the H-2A visa program, which enables laborers to enter to the United States for temporary work. Now, that sounds great, temporary, right? Okay? But what happened is you start hearing people grumbling about this and complaining about this Public Law 78 and how it did not adequately provide them with a reliable supply of workers. Unions complained that the BRACERO present was harmful to U.S. workers. Is it? You heard what it said in the beginning of this, talking about 600,000 to 800,000 a year? Really? Okay, so the United States ultimately got to decide how the workers would enter the country by way of reception centers set up in various Mexican states. Now, you heard in that report where he was talking about what this happened, farm and center and the stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on that is not privy to, the everyday person, and the situations that sometimes just fall out, and sometimes they go across, and some of us catch it, and sometimes we disseminate it, and sometimes we still don't get it. But that mass of many people dying, should have been asked, well, what was this really about? Right? What was this really about? And so they had required that the workers pass a local level election before moving on to a regional migratory stations, right? A tongue-tied, and I'm hungry ain't yet. But anyway, the laborers had to pass a number of physical examinations, and then they had to still go through, lastly, to the United States Reception Center. Workers were inspected by the human department. They used to spray DDT on them. You know, they kind of find out that shit is cancerous, right? Spraying that DDT on your ass to disinfect you, and then later come to find out that shit was giving cancer. But anyway, and so this was sent to contractors that were looking for workers. So there was somebody that was working hand in hand. Now again, remember when I was telling you about when we was migrating out the South? Remember they were sending people down there as recruiters for us, telling us, okay, we can go over here, get some better living, this, and this, right? So, all right. So that's a business somewhere, right? This is a big business somewhere that's not really in the public's eyes, right? This is really a big, big business. Now, what I'm about to say here is not me saying it, but this is just the history to it, right? It talks about how to address the overwhelming amount of undocumented migrants in the United States, right? The Immigration Nationalization Service launched the Operation Wetback. I didn't say that. That's what they said. They called it Operation Wetback in June of 1954. And it was to repatriate illegal laborers back to Mexico. I guess that don't exist anymore. You know, because that's, to say that word wetback is like derogatory, right? But ain't that something the country had named that as Operation then, right? That was the name of it, right? And the illegal workers who came over to the States at the initial start of the program were not ones of those who would be affected by this operation, but it would be the mass group of workers that they were trying to extend their stay in the United States, right? So let's just look at that. This is 1942, y'all. That was going from 42 to 60, or 22 years, so I guess 64, right? So it was a 22 years ago. So what happens when you were bringing all these men up here? You weren't bringing women, you were just bringing the men up here, young men that was coming up here that was working, right? And so they said they started to close some of these camps between 57 and 58. But as you heard in that report there's what that sounded like, there was some camps over there somewhere, right? And so to impose new minimum wage standards, that was in 59. So isn't that funny, ironically, that we on the verge, at least they on the verge, or they're talking about it. Matter of fact, they even stopped the stimulus package is based on the fact that they talking about that minimum wage, right? The $15. They say, nah, stop, hold on now. We trying to get this out. Now, wait a minute. For those who, you know, the minimum wage $7, right? Most places, $7 nationwide, right? I guess, is it federally? Because I don't know, state and federal is two different things. But let's say $7. So you're going to double up in a dollar more. You know, $15 compared to making $7 is twice more. Don't mean you're buying much, much more. Don't mean you're going to live in much better or drive much better. But if they do that, a lot of people going to be hurt with that. Everybody not going to benefit, and a lot of these companies can't afford it, right? So what about this? Y'all remember this? Remember when I showed this? Let me show this and be right back. Check this out.
What do you want for your people?
I'll be honest, I'm here today because in my country, with the hurricane that we had, it's kind of terrible, and we got a president that he's not helping the population, and we're in a bad situation. I'm coming from way, way far away from Roatan. And
Where is your family?
My family, I left them home. I know they kind of worried because I don't have no internet so that they can check me and see how I'm doing. And I'm here today because I'm dreaming to get to the U.S.
What is happening now with the pandemic?
Well, the pandemic, it's messed us up a lot. I used to work tour guide, tourism, and we on the island, we're not receiving no tourism. Because
You're from Roatan?
I'm from Roatan. Born and raised, islander. and that's where I will live.
What do you want for your people?
What I want for my people, I just want patience and peace that we can get to the U.S. because they're having a new president, where's Biden. He's going to help all of us. He's given us 100 days to get to the U.S. and give us legal mental paper so we can get a better life for our kids and family.
All right, so you remember him, right? Remember what he had said, right? Had 100 days to get here, right? Rushing here to get here because somebody offered something saying for them to get here. So again, this BRACERO agreement, right? This was between the United States and Mexico, going back to 1943, right? Again, this was an agreement between the United States and Mexican government that permitted Mexican citizens to take temporary agricultural work in the United States. Temporary at that time, right? So, now the scope of this program, they said was that it was to be managed migration. Managed. Now this was back then. Now, again, they can't even really tell you the numbers. And then we have a lot of other stuff that's happening. 25 people packed up in there, and that one just happened to get caught. That's showing everybody. So, you know, are we against people who are in situations that are trying to help themselves? No, we're not like that. But I want to show y'all something as I tell you a little bit more about this, is because something happened in history before. Same people, for some of us, again, I'm not going to say everybody who hears me may be Black Americans, but as white folks, when you look at their history, again, as a whiteologist, I read a lot of that stuff, the histories and stuff, a lot of stuff that a lot of people won't read, but I'm going to show you something that happened in history. How did they ever get in power? Do y'all know that? They haven't always been in power, right? And so do you know the history, how they got in power? So it's a correlation to what's happening right now. That is me being on the watchtower. I just want to put this out here, just food for thought. You know, I say fact to chew on, right? So according, they said it was about the solution to America's labor needs. It was prompted by the enormous manpower shortage created by World War II. Okay? At that time, they said about 4.5 million Mexican citizens were legally hired. Now, they say the thing illegally, right? And it primarily was then Texas and California, right? And so, when you think about World War II, you're thinking about how the United States, and it said men and women of all ages worked day and night in factories, and it took the healthiest and the strongest young people were sent to the front lines. That's what the story says. They said that they took the older young. Now again, remember, we as Black Americans, we really can't get in there and fight. We can join, but they're not really putting us in there. So they were gathering up most of their young men and women, and they were putting them into there. So that left a lot of availability. Again, that was helping us to migrate out, right? And so now you got the farms left, right? So that's what they're saying. So they turned to the Mexicans or Mexico as a supplier for labor. So June 1st of 1942, Mexico declared war against the Axis powers. Now this was at that time. Mexico was declaring a war against them. And so after they immediately did that, the United States Department of State was asked to approach Mexico officials on the question of importation of foreign labor. So that was them showing, we down with you. How come we be down? But there's another history to this of how United States and Mexico, when you talk about Texas, Calahoga, and how that whole thing of Santa Ana and that whole business, there's a whole history there with this, with the Mexicans and the people who were there and those people who they end up getting up out of there. So there's a real long history here. But I want you to understand, I want y'all to check this out. And so this alliance ended up becoming because of them getting in, trying to get in with the, against the Axis power that the United States was also getting into it with. So they made a pact with them with that. And so, as I told you about the Public Law 78 in 1951, the agreement was to expect for temporary efforts And this is where this whole beginning of the migratory of Mexicans coming into the United States, right? But now, you just seen the president is already petitioning the 2020 President Joe Biden. Let's renegotiate this contract that we got here. As you heard my man said, it somehow the APB, the All People Bulletin to get to the United States had 100 days to get here. Where is that going to leave us at? How do we benefit with that kind of mass of people who really is just, I mean, we understand their situation, but if you was to sit down to have to haggle and barter about petition or trying to, get some kind of work, somebody going to undercut you because there's a level you won't go beyond because you say, I can't benefit from that, right? So, let me tell y'all a little something here. Let me give you this history about something they said that happened about, let's see, let's see, over 1,700 years ago, right? About 1,700 years ago. About August of 378 AD, right? It was a battle fought in Adrianople. Okay? It said that St. Ambrose referred to it as the end of all humanity, right? I'm talking about the Eastern Roman Emperor was Flavius Julius Valens at this time. And what happened was they were sending their troops to go against the Gulf. Now, the Gulf was those Germanic people. Now, again, remember, understand who the people here is and who they're descended of. When you go look up, you'll see that the German language is the most spoken language here in this country by white folks. So primarily, most of them are Germans, right? The German people, right? And this is going to take you back to how they got in, okay? Now, they was the Gauls, right? And the Romans at that time considered them the barbarians. The barbarians. So they got into a battle where it was about 40,000 soldiers that was fighting against about 100,000 soldiers. And then there was a massacre that happened. About 30,000 Roman soldiers had died based on that. So the question again is, were the Romans really just white folks? Right? You know how they depict when you watch the movie, they all white folks. But were the Romans really all white folks? Because there's two eras in the Roman era, right? But anyway, so the empire was defeated, okay? But there's a part in this that I wanted to bring part about with this story so that you can understand. Now, it says that the beginning of the end of the Western Empire in 476, Rome ruled a territory of nearly, they say, about 600 million hectares. They say about 2.3 million square miles. It's about 2/3 of the area of the present day, which is our country, the United States. They say it was about a population of about 55 million people. It claimed this is one of the most important defeat in history, especially when you talk about the Roman Empire and how its roots had to deal with the refugee crisis. The refugee crisis. Now, 2 years before all this was beginning, you had Gulf, who had descended towards the territory of where the Roman looking for shelter. That's what they say in history. They said we was coming looking for a shelter, right? And so there was a mismanagement of the Gulf or the Gulf refugees, right? There was a mismanagement of them. And it started a chain of events that led to the collapse of one of the biggest, they say, political military power of humankind has ever known. That's who this one represents. This is who they say they are. They are the child of that. Right? That's who they claim they are, right? This is who they claim. And so, in 376, these Germanic Gulf people were forced to leave their territories. Right? Now they start moving into the eastern parts of Europe, pushed south, and they met up against the Huns. Right? You ever heard Attila the Hun, right? Now, the way they described the Hun race, they said it was a race of savage beyond parallel. They was afraid of the Huns, right? The Huns was the scourge of God to them. Them mugs didn't play with them. Matter of fact, when you really know history, you know them. It was a time when the Huns, the Moors, all of them is collapsing at one and got somebody cornered, but somebody saved their bacon. Charlemagne the God, the one that not the one that's on that Breakfast Club. We talking about the one that was in Europe. Right? But anyway, so, they describe how these Huns, they lived in these lofty mountains that came down like a whirlwind, ravaging, destroying everything that came in their way, right? So a lot of the Gulf, they was like, shit, we ain't gonna fight with them. Let's get the hell away from them. Them niggas crazy, right? So they started resettling themselves and got closer to where they say they called it the Danube River, looking for a better solution because they didn't want to have to deal with them. And now they kind of running also from dealing with the Romans, right? And they believed that the river would give them a good defense to keep the Huns at bay, okay? So the land that they own is not free land. That land that they own is Roman Empire territory, right? So they had a leader at the time, I think his name was Fritigern, I think how they say the name was. Now he was the one who was leading the Gaul, right? So what he decided to do to make some peace, and now he don't want to deal with the Huns, so what he's going to do is he's going to petition himself to the Romans and say, you know what, we're gonna promise to live quietly. We're willing to give our men as auxiliary troops to your empire, right? And if you need us to rise in time of fight, we'll be there for you. So when Rome was looking at them and saying, oh, wait a minute, hey, you know what? That won't be a bad damn thing when we get these cats, man. Now, I want you to see the analogy in this here. I want you to see the analogy in here. Because the same people that you've seen in that crash, same people who they talking about them braceros, say history repeats itself, especially those who don't know. But anyway, right? So they looking at it and say, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at this. So we know we need our lands to be cultivated. Here's the Roman. We need our lands to be cultivated. We need more soldiers. And anybody who's willing to do that will always be welcome in the empire. Let me say that again. Anybody who's willing to come to cultivate your land and become soldiers for you will always be welcome in the empire. Now, they were looking at combining the strength of them and them with these foreign forces. They said we would have an army that would be absolutely invincible. Okay? If we put these two together, any of our enemies cannot beat us. Well, I wonder why that census box been changed, checking white for other people now. Remember did I show last time? Put that up there. Let's see, we got that up there. Remember I told you the other day, we got that up there? Let's see. Yeah, put that one up there. Right? Because it was at one time, you got that a little bit too high there, sir. There you go, that's good. Right? I'm not sure there was a sign that was in Texas talking about no dogs, no Negroes, no Mexicans. All right? Mexicans, Negroes about the same. But look at the order it goes. Dogs, Negroes, Mexicans, right? Mexicans done moved up past Negroes and above dogs. So now it's Mexican dogs and Negroes at the bottom, right? How it going now, right? So they done moved up in their status, right? Moved up status, they got pathway, they getting their citizenship, they in the military deep now, they even, getting a lot of rank now, right? Population done moved past blacks, they came second, anything to keep blacks from being number 2. And then so, you guys don't stand 12%, 13%, we keep having babies, but you can't grow, right? And then they combining these people to be with these people. So it's like, this is kind of like the same story, right? It's the same story, but look how this story ended though, right? Look how this story gonna end. So it started off peaceful, right? You know how relationships are, right? With somebody, everything is PR man. You know what I'm saying? Girl, you got some little ketchup on your mouth and wipe that off. You know what I'm saying? Your shoulders, let me rub you. You know what I'm saying? The relationship be good in the beginning, right? And as time go on, right? Things don't start like, I don't like the way you smell or snore and all that other stuff, right? So what happened was the Romans started putting them in service, having them going out doing search and rescue programs. And they started like, man, we can't leave nobody behind, so we have to go out and start killing all these cats. And so somehow they were saying not even those who were stricken with mortal diseases. So they always say that, like when you look at and trace back, let's say about the germ war, right? We talk about germ war. They take it back to this time when they used to take the dead bodies and throw them in the water source, and the decomposing body get in there, and then it would make people sick and so forth. That's your biological war weapon was originated doing that, right? So here it was, some issues got between them. They decided to say, well, we got to kill each other. So they go out and they start trying to knock them off, right? Now, even though they said they were throwing the disease, this wasn't killing them. They were still crossing across the stream. They was getting the hell up out of there, running up out of there. Now again, also in the history, when you talk about the barbarians in the Rome, they was taking those choices, barbarians, raising them, teaching them, making them become soldiers and so forth. And you know how it is. Start bringing morals up in there. More get up in there. And they move in positions. And when you also know the history, they couldn't vote and all that other stuff. And one thing led to another. And here we are being oppressed hundreds of years by the same individual. But I want to show you something. So here it was, they were running, a great many of them were drowned. Some of them got swept away in the stream. And now these are the Gulf going after the Romans, killing them like that. They said that was estimated about 200,000 of them that ended up being dead at that time. And they said there were so many of them, the Gulf, see, because they mismanaged, they didn't keep count of them. They were coming all up in there and they didn't know who was all up in there. They didn't know. So because they didn't calculate the numbers, they didn't know who they was fighting. When it all came about, when it was all come, ta-da, we come here to fight. You don't know who you fighting. Because see, the way that you originally did it, it seemed that you did it in the way that it was beneficial because you said, oh, we need labor, and right? Now, again, this Roman attitude towards the barbarians, right? And they would take these barbarians, and what they would do is they would put them in areas that they needed more for their population. Sound familiar? And so what they were doing, they was making this strong push towards assimilation that eventually turned foreigners into citizens. This is back then. This is This is not black history, African history. This is their history. You understand? And I'm not even going to tell you that the Romans were 100% white folks either, right? But this is what happened then. Remember, they started assimilating them, and eventually these foreigners turned into citizens. And the descendants of the immigrants would routinely be seen in high ranks of military and administration. Isn't that what's been happening lately? We've been seeing all kind of other people. Like I said, I just said on here before. When did this became the immigrant nation? I understand people who all come here, they come by choice and that, but how did it become the immigrant nation when people come from nations? But history gonna replay itself again. See, everything you did to try to do against us, I got something I'm gonna end this show with. The show, okay? Remember how history how you got in? See, the thing is, sometimes people, you just look too smart. Was they too smart for your own good? But you forgot how you got in. And you think that these people, because you can check the box and then but they may got to say something in their mind just like how you did once upon a time when you did what you did. So, because remember we heard what somebody told, oh, you guys don't worry about, you guys gonna have to learn to deal with them, right? We heard that, right? That was probably the secret conversation and end up spilling out what we end up hearing, right? So this recipe that kept the empire safe from attack from other populations was simple. Allow them into the empire and make them Romans. That was the philosophy. That was the receipt. That was the recipe. Get other people who come here from all around the world, change them, make them become assimilate, become who you are, make them become citizens who you are, and we'll be safe. We'll grow prosperous. But that crash might have been an inkling to say, well, shit, 25 packed in an SUV, you can't even imagine how they did it, but that was just one. How long and how many and what is the official count? Because they keep telling us 11 million. I don't believe that. Do you? Do you believe that? So things changed. Those people who did all that, mentality changed because they say, hey, you know what? We can't really be president, right? We can't really rule. We can be but we want to rule too. We don't want to just be subjected to it, right? So what happened is some of the military officials who were in charge of the provisions of the Gulf, what they started doing is they started support offers to migrants arriving from Greece and Italy, and they started getting corrupt. Now, a lot of stuff that was supposed to be profit that was supposed to be meant for the refugees, they start starving them off, right? Making them not deal with it. They was like, we ain't dealing with you no more. We don't need to deal with you anymore. Huh? Force them, they said at that time, they talking about buying dog meat. I guess dog meat was the worst thing you could have done at that time. But depending, I guess if you're Asian, may not be. But at that time, they said dog meat is what they was giving, right? And so, because of this, became what they say the disaster of the Romans. Trust between the abused Gulf and the Romans was broken. And so what happened? Those Germanic Gulf people who wanted at one time to become Roman, now they wanted to destroy Rome. Oh, now they want to destroy it, right? So they seen the rage in their eyes. They seen how they was going and attacking men, taking them down, taking down the whole empire. So they had migrants trying to get into Europe from all over. So, shows well that migration has always and always will be a part of the world. But there's two ways you better deal with when you're talking about with the refugees, they say. You either promote them with dialogue and inclusion or unwelcoming and uncaring. And the second one leads to disaster. You know, it was just a crash. Yeah, it was just what it was. When it wasn't all what you think it is, Mr. Blow Your Mind. But yeah, basically, some people behind my mess. We just want to come here for a better life. Wait a minute. How you keep bringing people when you got people already here? So everybody anticipating those who looking for that $15, but you got people that, you know, they already got farms and stuff that we don't even know that really exists. We don't know about it. I mean, a lot of us don't really know the ins and outs of all that. This ain't about immigrant hatred. This is saying, hey, Is this beneficial? Can this backfire on you? Especially when you don't know how many you really got. At least that's the way you report saying. So that's just something we got to look at. But we do got one thing that somebody said as we go ahead and get into this. Take this, a break, and then come right back, and we're going to get in this year. I just wanted to do this a little bit to get in here. And do the break and then come right back. You got the break? Oh, should have did the other one because see, they talked about how to use the youth, right? Well, we're going to do that and come right back.
Say something right quick. I think back on the African American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep south and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, the A-team used to come on. I love it when the plan comes together. Sometimes you might think you got the blueprint, thinking that what you're doing is slick to try to hold somebody else down. But it might be your own demise. So you may think you know somebody got them pegged. They might be here to do something else. See, history has showed this back before, how you got in. See, they done forgot how they got in. And then now you think that you can tell somebody now because you try to change their mentality and make them think that they is like you, but that don't mean they really truly harbor like you. They may still got some disdain towards you, but you think I could change them mentally and make them spiritual and make them hate the other ones, but you don't know that which controls all things may be your own demise. I'm just here to tell you, maybe, right? You know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Shh. Take what he said. You know, some people gonna run with it. Hey, he said that don't like me. Well, we already know this. I think everybody pretty much know that, but nobody really want to admit it. But I'm just saying how things are setting it itself, getting itself lined up. Things are putting itself in the scope. Maybe that was to tell us something. Because see, right now we're at the precipice, right? Right at the cliff, right? Now, you pass the 15, a lot of people going to be happy and joy, but then when you ain't got no damn job, what good is $15 an hour when you can't get no damn job? And then you got on another hand, you got some other people here who, they'll take what they can get. Remember in 1942, they were taking 30 cents an hour. So oil and water don't mix. What happens in time? Just like the relationship you've seen with the barbarians or the Goths with the Romans. Well, they came in with good intent. They came in to be subjugated and assimilated and trying to be like you. But then what happens when shit don't work for them no more? Well, history repeats itself. And then the way you got in and got in your power will be the way that you'll fall on your demise. I'm just saying. So, this is my show for today. Let me see if anybody out here. Just wanted to bring that for food for thought, y'all. Because that's what I seen when I seen that. Can you imagine that 25 people packed up in a SUV? And that was just one. How long and how many and how long have they been doing that? You know, then they got the one that said they come in the right way. Then we hear somebody for 100 days. Well, how many of them came in? We don't know. We just know what the stats and the number they tell us. Then if you can get here, they got places where people can just go and it's within the game, sanctuary cities. How many in there? Right? Don't know. So we could be in flux with so many to the fact that just like what happened with the Gulf and the Romans, that they mismanaged to count. Then somebody here going back, because I remember one time not too long ago, we were talking about La Raza. Remember that La Raza? It was talking about they coming to take their country back. Did anybody forget that? Oh, in exchange to be white, drop that. Be white now. Yeah, we'll take that if we're going to give some privilege until we can get into a position. Then what happens if they come out on a bag on our ass? See, all the time, everybody be focusing on you to think that you the damn bad man, right? Because of what they did. You know, the old saying is, I hate you more because I know you know that I done you wrong. So what I do is I keep trying to get other people to help get on my side to hate you to keep you down. But in the end, just like how you did, how you got in, maybe the only way that your same way you going to go out too. Again, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Want to thank each and every one of you and those who gave likes and out there. Maybe do some shares. I do have another channel. Help me to get the 100 subscribers over there so I can do some other stuff. Right? Go to Black Minds TV, BLAKMINDZ TV. Go over there, just subscribe for me. Help me to get that to 100. I'm trying to do more. I see Cheryl Ruth in the house the same way they ship manufacturing to China. Now it's buying in the U.S. in the butt with no jobs, right? See, always looking for some place to go cheaper, right? We always looking for some place to be cheaper because you want profits. I mean, you know, I was looking at this situation where a sister had died that worked for, is it Amazon, I think, right? I don't know if any of y'all seen that story. With sister, she died because she was kind of doing, let's say, put it this way, she was doing a duty that's not really prescribed for what she should be doing, and she was administering, and she ended up catching something. You know, we can't say it, right? And she died from it. So the sister and them are out here trying to bring awareness to it. But you know, you're fighting against somebody who pockets is long. So here you with no money trying to fight against a giant. So you ain't gonna get hurt, right? And none of the major mothers gonna talk about it. So they have to say it's kind of like just you got to charge it to the game, right? You know how they want to do us. Wait, let me. For those who may not understand, let me give you this. This is what they want to really do, right?
Squeal.
Right? That's what they do. They want to make us squeal, right? So here it is. You keep shuffling so that we can't benefit. Because again, I did the video showing the migration of we as Black Americans and how we came from the South and through 1916 to 1940s, and then we was able to benefit because you got World War I happening. So a lot of white people died on that. So we was able to get into the industry somewhat. And then from 1940 to 1970. Then I show you how the government showed the letters talking about how we was prospering and how we was doing better than them. And it became alarming to them. And then from 70 to 80, we know the crack came in and 90s locking us up. So, you know, and taking those jobs that a lot of us, our families were coming up out of, you know, warehouses, factories, those jobs were sustainable for us. We was able to take care of our family, you know, and all that stuff. So, and rather dealing with us, right? This basically what you're saying, Cheryl. Instead of them dealing with us, they always find some way to shit to go around to get cheaper. Oh, you getting richer, your products become shittier. But in the end, look what's happening. See, because you don't have far sight. They don't have the far sight like they think they do, because the greatest chess player that ever there is the one who created the whole game. See, so you can do all the things that they trying to do, but the same way they got in might be the way they ass about to go out. So you trusting in somebody that you thought, but you know, like I said, go back a little bit. I remember they was just talking about them. They was coming here. They saying that they were the Indians, that they took their country and they come back. So this agreement you've been doing all this damn time, they didn't find a way to get in here in a way it's legal. Like I say, the lawful invasion, right? You lawfully let somebody come in because that's the game you done set up. The way you trying to do it is to keep suppressed, but it might be to your own detriment. And they just don't see it, no matter what you tell them. And it ain't for us to tell them no way. But as that so-called preacher Reverend said, that's what we gonna rely on. That's what's gonna manifest. Ain't gonna tell you what I heard, I'm gonna tell you what I know. That's gonna manifest. How it gonna manifest? Because the way things are going right now, ain't no certainty. We can't guarantee how everything finna fall next. But as the things that are happening, and I got the, can I show it to her? Maybe I should show it, because I was gonna do this. But I think I'm gonna do it on my next show. Let me just give you a little taste of what I seen yesterday. Once again, check it out.
As we approach 1 full year of COVID restrictions, there's new data confirming that a baby boom that some doctors and, for that matter, comedians expected is actually turning out to be a major baby bust. Health departments in 27 states provided records to CBSNews.com, and they show a 7% drop in births in December. That would be 9 months after the first lockdowns began. And it could be just the beginning. Researchers say it matches a much bigger plunge in fertility that is decades in the making. The number of babies the average woman is expected to deliver in her lifetime has dropped from nearly 4 in the 1950s to less than 2 today. And that could present an entirely different threat to society as we know it than we were first warned about decades ago.
The stakes in this battle are far greater than any other we have ever fought.
In the 1960s and 70s, an apocalyptic fear gripped America.
The experts we interviewed told us population was the fundamental crisis.
As the world stampeded toward 10 billion people, many researchers predicted that overpopulation would ruin us.
Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come. And by the end, I mean an utter breakdown of the capacity of the planet to support humanity.
But these days, a very different note from researchers like USC professor Dal Myers, who studies demographic trends.
The trouble is we overshot. We dropped it down too much now.
While the global population is still growing, a major study last summer predicted it'll actually peak in 2064 and then fall by nearly 1 billion people by the end of the century. The reason? Fewer babies. Here in the U.S., in fact, we're already below the so-called replacement level by some measures, and that means fewer young people to support our otherwise aging population.
That's a crisis. We need to have enough working-age people to carry the load of these seniors who deserve their retirement. They deserve all their entitlements, and they're going to live out another 30 years. Nobody in the history of the globe has had so many older people to deal with.
And the pandemic is only making this problem worse, despite some early jokes that more families staying home together might mean more babies.
We thought, we would see a baby boom, but we just haven't seen it.
Dr. David Jaspin is chair of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics at Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia. He says patients are worried about not only their health, but their finances.
So you're hearing more people ask you about contraception and fewer people say, we're thinking about trying.
That's absolutely true. I get a report every morning at 5:15 about what has happened in the last 24 hours. And the first report that I see is the number of deliveries in the last 24 hours. It's less than it used to be.
The question now is, how low will it go? The Brookings Institution has predicted a large, lasting baby bust of at least 300,000 fewer children in 2021. We are on the precipice, at the very least, of not having enough children to replace our population.
And so what? I mean,
well, that's the interesting question. Yeah,
right? So,
Laura Lindbergh tracks reproductive data for the Guttmacher Institute. And while she's also seeing the baby bust, she views it as a sign of progress, a marker of women's equality and freedom of choice.
So it's a shift to later in life. In that shift comes more education, more career, more employment. So it's a reordering of how people engage in adulthood.
Dal Myers doesn't disagree, but in the bigger picture, he worries our declining birth rate is also a barometer of despair. In 1978, when you were breaking into the field, did you ever think in your lifetime you'd be talking about a declining birth rate globally?
No.
So what changed?
The burdens of life, the cost of housing, the cost of education, all these things have become more and more difficult. I think the boomers themselves don't realize how much harder it is for millennials today. And they think, oh yeah, when we were young, we had to live, on very little money, and we made do, and you can do the same. That's the story, right? Well, no, it really is a lot harder for the young people today. It's amazing how much harder it is.
Yeah.
All right, so again, baby bust. Thought they were going to have a boom. They thought science was going to help them to be popping them out. It's greater than you. It's greater than you. They're thinking that immigration is going to be the savior. It's not going to help you. See? But, they can take it or leave it alone. But, piling up other people up in here may not be good either, because just like how in history has shown how they got, because a lot of people are baffled, like, how did they ever get there? Well, that's the story you need to go research. That's the story you need to know. When the Romans and the barbarians and how that whole thing developed and went into the little part I just gave you, the history of that. Oh yeah, that's how that happened. So, just like one empire falls, another one falls. But you had time to do what was right, and you didn't choose to do it. So it is what it is. So baby boom, baby bust, say globally, I don't know if that's really, I think maybe the fact that there may be some, as they say, spiritual wars where, you're eating stuff and drinking stuff and people got science up in there that might be doing something. So they say, we all are having these same issues, not just us, it's all of us. Let me show you this right quick. Show that right quick. Put that up there. Okay. Right. So I've seen this stat here. It was talking about fertility declines have been most severe for Hispanic and American Indian. Now they say Hispanics can't have babies. They either got the worst, 18.7, negative 18.78. But these are people you bringing. You're loading it up in here, especially males. These males they shooting blanks. But the ones who not shooting blank is the one we gonna lock up and make sure he can't have no babies, right? Again, I did a show that showed you the stats of the 1980, and we had grown exponentially to the fact that it was alarming that we outbirthed everybody by a little bit. And we thinking 80s, we thinking crack, but there was a lot of babies being born too. So, the dude in the church said something, told them to shut their mouth. You better recognize what time it is and who it is. Better quit playing. Better go ahead and do what y'all go ahead and do. You got the whole game rigged up. You got your man in. You got your woman in. You got the legislation. Go on, give it to them right if that's what you need to do. If not, well, Sandow, they say the days of our lives of the Sandow turning, well, the sand almost getting up out of there. So we just got to hold on like I did the video back in April 1st of 2014. The one they took down, made sure this channel would never grow no more ever since then. I told you we own the expressway. You know how you can see the outer skirts of the city just a little bit longer? We ain't got much longer. They ain't got much longer left. They know this. But anyway, this ain't about no hatred. It's just telling like a TI is. So, again, I want to thank everybody who showed up. For one, Cheryl Roof. Haven't seen in a while. I'm glad you're still around, sister. Oh, okay, hold on. I got some messages up here. We Boogie. Mexicans is the new face of the Caucasian. Yeah. He'll take it for the status, but I think he still want to be who he is. I mean, that's all that shit is a game anyway. But I get what you're saying. He is the new face, because him being from Europe as a Spaniard, so they say, well, you're Spaniard, so you're European, and we're European, so yeah, because he can populate. But I just showed you that he ain't having babies either. Ain't that something? They can't have babies no more either. Ain't that something? Remember, they were so fertile, they just put it in and they popped out. We could go toe, they could go toe to toe, but they done something that well done went dry. You ever seen the movie called Children of Men? They already told you. They know what it is. If they ain't seen it, go check that movie. It's called Children of Men. And in that, sisters is the only one going to be able who can produce. Everybody else, because I showed a stat once too, where it showed who are the oldest people. White Americans are the oldest people. They demographics, when they get into that baby boomer and silent or whatever, they got way more older people than they got younger people, and the ones and then the opioid killed a lot of them in that middle group, that 30, like middle 30s and 40, 50, early 50s. A lot of them got knocked out through that, but ain't nobody gonna tell you the numbers of that. So, take what it is. Cheryl said, at this point, it's easy for them to dig that grave deeper and save face than to try to correct the past misdeeds, unfortunately. Some of us, like, they tell us like the bull, right? They say the bull is, once it see red, it's just going to keep charging, right? Not going to stop. It just got his mind fixated on just that one. Instead of, now you do have some of them who are out here who trying to say, hey, man, everything we taught or everything we've learned was wrong. We were wrong, and we come to find out that there's certain, you find some nuggets here and there, them, right? But the majority of them, they're going to run until the wheels fall off. They don't give no shit, right? They don't give a shit. They don't see the handwriting, like talking about the handwriting on the wall. They don't even see that. They ignore that shit. We're going to be here forever because we got science. Well, shit. Science can't beat what made science. But if that's how you look at it, so Cheryl goes on and says, what good is all this education, freedom of choice for women, etc., if the world doesn't go on? You have to have children for any one of this stuff to matter. These people have serious twisted logic. 100. And the thing is, with that twisted logic has permeated globally, with imperialism and colonialism, and then look at you like something wrong with you. No, this is what you birthed. This is what you done. So if I'm all messed up in the way my logic is and you think something, no, this is what you taught me. But many of us are not like that. Many of us have kept our mind. That's the great thing about being Black American, because we've always been fighting. Now again, that don't mean all of us. You have some of us, we've been fighting to maintain our mind. And that's what they don't like about us. We've been trying to maintain that. Some of us, we tap dance and do what we got to do for our sustenance. But, we try to keep that, matter of fact, in the MAC, remember in the MAC, he was like, you get that education, but you keep it with that Black awareness always, right? We get to always keep that Black awareness. That don't mean we hate other people. You have who you are. We just got to be who we are because, again, the greatest analogy I can give you, we are Neo in the Matrix when he fought all the agents. Remember that scene where he had to fly the hell up out of there because it was even too overbearing for him. And that's how it be for us. Sometimes we overbearing. Sometimes we have to go back and reset ourselves and come back again. But we built for this. And so the thing is, we were the moral compass of this nation, and we used to show you how to do it. And because you hated that so much, you had to destroy the model, the blueprint. But that had to be reconstructed and get itself and refix itself. They said like the mind, right? They say, well, actually refix itself after a period of time. That's what happened with us. We had to go through that process. You had to bring us down low and boil us down, and we came back in solid form, and now we ready. Ain't nothing you could throw at us, and we done had it all. You done did it all. We could teach you how to survive. See, people with all this stuff, pandemic and stuff, shit, motherfuckers out here like, they don't get, why we gotta put the man, you know? And again, for those who might hear me and family, my condolences to you by Black Minds News. We say that for those that they have said, whether you know for certain or not, and if you do, again, our hats is off to you, our prayers with you. But then there's you know, a lot of people just out here like, they still doing what they doing. You've been tested. Again, they say, you know the sustenance of a person by going through the process. Are you paper? Are you plastic? Are you metal? Are you metal? Gold? You understand? We've been battle tested. So whatever you keep throwing at us and then get mad at us because you've been doing so much to us that we just don't fall in line because we're doing this because this is the best for you. Should be like, okay, yeah. That's why we don't trust it. Because you telling us that you doing something for the benefit of us. We don't believe that. You understand? B-Max said, I'm late. I got to watch this on replay. It's all good, brother. But again, because I got to go eat, man. I appreciate all y'all. Cheryl, Ruth, We Boogie, B-Mac, and others who might have came in here and gave a like. I appreciate that. Again, I am the most hated show on the Black Corner Internet. Been doing this for 9 years. I can't get 100 views. Used to get 200, 300,000, 50,000. No more of that. That's all. So it ain't about that. Most people like, I don't even know why you still come on, because it ain't about that. You know, sometimes messages is for certain people. Ain't made for everybody. So those who do and hear it, again, who agree with it or not, that's fine. But I know that what I see and what they trying to do, and Cheryl saying there saying, that shit done ran its course. It's slowly going out. It's like a flickering flame. It's going out. And they know it. Have y'all been noticing on TV lately that these damn commercials got everybody, got Chinese? Like, damn, what's going on here? Is somebody kneeling to Zod like in Superman? Kneel to Zod. You gonna kneel, huh? And then you got the one that's still they gonna go out hardcore, but some of these mugs is kneeling because they know, right? So take it for what y'all want, man. Again, this is the most hated show in the Black Corner Internet. To my next show, y'all. To the next show.